Welcome to the Real Estate and Wealth Podcast, your go-to resource for navigating the world of real estate investing and wealth creation. This podcast is brought to you by Calvert Home Mortgage Investment Corporation, your trusted, caring, and responsive short-term mortgage lender in Alberta and Ontario. We explore strategic and tactical solutions to elevate your real estate portfolio, drawing insights from seasoned Canadian investors and trusted advisors. In each episode, we dive into various aspects of real estate investing, including market trends, property analysis, financing strategies, risk management, and much more. Whether you're a seasoned real estate investor looking to expand your portfolio or a beginner taking those first steps, this podcast is for you. So today on the podcast, we have Grier from Calvert Home Mortgage. You are a valuator. I'll let you introduce yourself, but tell us a little bit about yourself, background, and how you got into valuations and appraisals.
So I'm a residential appraiser. I've been appraising for 10 years. Probably done over 7,000 appraisals, ballpark it. Bit of commercial in there, but mostly residential. I got into appraisal through a ball hockey buddy of mine. I was looking for a career change. He was doing it, so thought it was something good to get into. And it's been, I've always been interested in real estate. And so
nice. So you're doing these valuations appraisals in Calgary?
Yep.
Just to give context.
Most of my experience is in Calgary, yeah.
Yeah, on the residential side. And from what you see on a daily basis, would love just to get into it. Do you have any common errors or mistakes that you see people that submit valuations to you that are just either incorrect, wrong, any misconceptions in that sense?
So big mistakes I see are people discount the negative influence on value that location can sometimes have, like being on a busy street or being near an airport or rail or a commercial retail place or fronting a bus stop. The house that's fronting a bus stop could be 5 or 10% less in value than the one that's not, just because you're going to have so much more traffic right in front of your house. The bus is always stopping there, and you always have people hanging out in front of your house. So that's a big one. A lot of people don't pay attention to the size of houses. They'll think that a house that's 3,000 square feet may be similar in value to one that's 2,000 square feet. But when you make big jumps like that in your livable area, generally you're going to be changing the quality of construction as well. There may be a bigger lot. You're going to see a lot more upgrades in those bigger houses generally. So there's a lot more to look at than just say your neighbor's house is the same as yours. So my neighbor's house sold for $1 million. So mine's worth $1 million as well.
Makes sense.
Yep. And so those negative influences, do those impact it the same way in a hot market like we are in now in Calgary? Like, does it change based on a seller's market or a buyer's market?
They can change. They do generally stay around the same, but they can vary a bit as markets change. One thing I noted in the past is a community in Calgary, Mahogany. There's a lot of green spaces in that area. I saw the influence of backing some of those green spaces drop in half from what it was in a hot market when it became a slower market. Basically, people weren't willing to pay as much for those influences when the economy wasn't as good.
Yeah. Interesting. And then what do you typically assign if it backs onto a highway? Like, are there any rules of thumb for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 decrease?
It depends. It depends on a lot. Like backing a highway could affect the value anywhere from like nothing to up to 20%. It depends what else is in between you and that highway and how busy that highway is. A lot of areas will have sound attenuation walls, like sound barrier walls. Some of them will have berms. You'll see like forested green spaces in between like the residential area and the highway. And that'll knock down a lot of that traffic noise, which is what is impacting the value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then for general clients who are looking to do their own valuations, what are you typically looking at? What are the comparables that you're doing, and what are the specific criteria that you're comparing one property to the next on?
So that's a tough question. It really varies by the property, but you're going to want to look at the size of the dwelling. So your GLA, your gross livable area. You're going to want to try to have those within 10 to 20% of your subject. you're going to want to try to have the same style house. So if you're looking at purchasing a 1-story or a bungalow, you want to look at your comps to be 1-stories or bungalows, not 2 stories, because those are different categories of housing and have slightly different markets are looking to purchase those types of properties. You want to try to look for properties that have the same or similar location influences. So if you're on a busy street, pick comps that are on a busy street. That'll then you don't have to worry about making any adjustments for that feature.
Makes sense. And then what about rural markets? Because I know from time to time we have clients submitting very rural properties. If there hasn't been comps in say over 180 days, if it's in a slower market and it's really rural.
How rural are you talking?
Let's say a population of 2,000 people.
So we're talking like small towns.
Small town.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for small towns, if we want to focus on that, generally we'll go back further in time to look for properties that are similar. In small towns, you can run into issues like you're going to have a lot of disparity between homes. You may have low-priced homes and high-priced homes, and then in the last 6 months, if you're looking at valuing a higher-priced home, there may not have been any of those homes that sold in that low market. So you may need to go back in time to find similar properties, or you may need to go to other similar small towns that are nearby that are driven by the same economic factors. Generally, they're pretty similar.
Okay. So is it best to go further back in time or more further out to get comparables? Is there a rule of thumb? There's a kind of...
I don't know if there's a rule of thumb. It really depends on the situation and what the market has done lately, what's available. Because maybe you'll choose some homes that are slightly inferior or the best comps in the last 6 months rather than going back in time to find something that's even more similar. It becomes you're weighing the different aspects of a property and the market and trying to choose the best one. So unfortunately, there's not always the best way to do it. You got to review the data and find out what is the best data available to indicate the market value.
It's best not to buy properties in small towns. Let's focus
stick to the major urban city centers.
Focus on the urban cities and surrounding
markets.
It's more marketable.
They're much more predictable in bigger centers. For sure.
Yeah, there's more data. There's just more interest in those.
It's a big buyer pool.
So, exactly. Yeah.
And what are you typically looking for comps? Is it 90 days, over 90 days? What are you looking for specifically there?
So in the lending market, generally lenders are looking for comps less than 90 days. So that's generally how the appraisal industry works then, because generally you're going to go get financing at some point. So you want your comps to be within 90 days. You can push it back farther up to 180 days. If you're rural, generally you can go back farther again as well to find more similar comps. If you're in a hot market or a rapidly declining market, you're going to want to try and find sales that are as close to your current date as possible, just because it's hard to estimate where that market's going, and you want to find recent sales to tell you where the market is right now, rather than guessing.
Interesting. And then in terms of adjustments, is there how far out typically do you go on a percentage basis in order for it to be a credible valuation or a credible appraisal? If anything's over 25% from the subject, does it still hold a lot of weight?
So I think what you're talking about here are like net adjustments on a property and like gross adjustments. So
and maybe explain the difference between
so net is a total of your positive and negative adjustments. So any adjustments you're making for the comp being superior to your subject or the comp being inferior, you add those up and it's a net difference in value change. Gross is just an absolute total of those adjustments. Generally, in the industry, you want to keep your net under 15 and your gross under 25 when you're doing urban properties. Rural, it's accepted to go a little bit larger. And as you get into higher price points and more high-end properties, unique properties, your adjustments can get larger as well because you just have less comps.
Makes sense.
So as someone who's evaluating properties, do you ever consider where the market's trending?
Really good question, because we see a lot of people submitting.
A lot of people speculate that, hey, market's going up right now, so my property's got to go up in 2 months. So I'm going to factor that in. But as an appraiser or evaluator, would you ever consider that type of data?
I consider it. Being on top of where the market is going is important to know what's happening in the industry I'm working in. But do I forecast and make adjustments for that? Not usually.
Yeah.
So there's three different types, types of value you can make in regards to time. You can do like a current appraisal. So an effective date would be the day you viewed the property. That's going to be the data that the appraisal is effective of. Or you can do prospective value, which is into the future. So then you might be making some guesses, some analyzing where the market's going, and guessing where that value might be in 3, 6, 12 months. And then a retrospective is looking back in time and doing a value based on where the market was, which is it's a unique way to do it because you have data after the effective date of that appraisal then. So if you were doing, say, an appraisal for a property as of, say, like June 2022, you would have sale data after that you can analyze as well. So you know where the market went. When you're doing a current appraisal, you don't always know where the market is for the month you're doing it in because you don't always have a lot of data. So you're making, sometimes you can make a bit of a forecast there about where the market is going into that current month. If you don't have a lot of data proving where the market is going in that month.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, our valuations at Calvert, we do time adjustments based on when the comp sold.
Yeah.
But we're not taking into account what we think the future of real estate values will be when they're going to sell the property, right? Yeah. Like it's not like we're saying, oh, the market's going to go up, because we can't predict that. Yes, it's trending that way, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah, we could definitely model that and have like, a best case or worst case or a likely case, but it's not something we get into doing.
Yeah.
In our day-to-day evaluations.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, like when the market decreased in Ontario, is there anything you do different when you see a market dramatically declining month over month and how you value a property?
I think appraisers by nature are conservative. Yeah. So in a declining market, you probably, if your adjusted value range of your comps is, say, like 700 to 800,000, you might conclude your value to be on the lower end of that range, especially if your more recent sales are on the lower end of that range. I think in a declining market, I would say appraisers are a little bit more conservative. I think we all are.
Yeah, I think people would love to hear what our structure is kind of for valuators, who we have on our team, how many people, how quickly we can do value, stuff like that. Do you want to speak to that? I know some values are more challenging, some aren't as challenging, like just a single family dwelling. So what time difference does it take to do a single family? How many people do we have on our team? That sort of stuff.
Yeah, so we have 4 evaluators on the Calvert team. There's myself, Jill, Ryan, and Robin. And we're spread across the world. We have 2 of us are here in Alberta. Ryan's in Ontario, and Robin's in Scotland remotely. So yeah, it's we can complete valuations rather quickly. We work remotely. So in the industry, that's typically called a desktop appraisal, where we're not physically visiting the site. So we make a lot more assumptions than a typical full appraiser or full appraisal service would. But that allows us to move a little quicker. We can turn valuations around sometimes in as little as an hour or 2, depending on the complexity.
Yeah. Well, I've seen you guys turn some around in 20 minutes.
That's all that's possible.
Yeah. But then there's the multifamily ones that can take multiple hours.
Yeah, multifamily can, depending on the complexity and our recent experience doing that. Like if we've done a lot recently, those can go much quicker, but they can take anywhere from 3-4 hours to a couple of days, depending on the complexity.
Yeah, which we don't do a lot of anyways, because we want a third party to do those. Because we should say that ours they're not appraisals that you can go out there and get financing on. We're using our valuations, which we call them because they're not appraisals, they're valuations, internal purposes only. And we're using all the data we have online through our realtor database and whatnot to get all our comps and whatnot. And we're not going to actually see the properties. We're just getting the photos from the clients and getting current photos so we understand the look of the property.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you say, our valuations are for internal use only. And one of the reasons for that is we make a lot more assumptions than a typical appraisal process would, which we're okay with internally. But a third party may not know all of those assumptions and may not know what we're doing. So that's why our valuations are just for internal use.
Yeah.
Mhm. Anything that you're seeing as it relates to different property or asset types, like single family, detached home, condos, townhouses, that maybe you have some interesting stats or regions in Calgary that's up versus last year that you might find particularly interesting?
Yeah, so with interest rates rising over the last couple of years, what we have been seeing is a trend to lower price points. So you're seeing areas, so row houses, townhouses, and apartments have been seeing significantly higher price growth here in Calgary than detached and semi-detached properties. Although detached and semi-detached properties are still growing quite quickly year over year. Right now, we're seeing year over year growth for detached homes around 10%. And for apartments and townhomes, we're seeing it closer up to 20%. It's almost double the price growth year over year. Along with that, we're seeing the supply is extremely low, less than 1 month of supply. In context for that, 3 months of supply would be a balanced market, and less than that, you're in a seller's market. So we've been in a seller's market in Calgary for probably 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the rationale is just as affordability decreases, more people are buying the same asset type at a lower purchase price just because affordability is getting
Yeah,
worse.
that's my interpretation of
Yeah.
that movement in prices. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So say there's a real estate investor, they're looking at renovating a property. One of them has a double car detached garage and one of them doesn't. How do you assign a value to, I guess, double car detached garages, single cars, and parking pads?
Okay, so there's a few ways of looking at that. So appraisers look at value from a number of approaches. So there's a cost approach. So you can look at what a contractor or a builder would charge you to build that garage or that parking pad. And then there's manuals that appraisers use that outline what the typical cost of those are. Because you could go to 3 different builders and you may get a range of like 20 to 40 grand to build a two-car garage. So there's manuals that kind of average that out and give you an idea of what the general cost is for that type of asset. Another way is to look directly at the market. It's called abstraction. So what you're going to do is you're going to look for 2 properties that have sold relatively close in time and that are similar except for that one aspect that you're looking for. So that detached garage. So two houses, they could be 2-story, 1-story, as long as the 2 you're choosing are the same style. And then you look at the price difference, what they sold for, and that price difference is going to indicate to you what the value of that garage is. So you do that once, you have an idea of what a garage is worth. The more times you do that, you get a better idea because you may abstract the value of that garage from 10 paired sales and it would range from 20 to 30,000. So the average value of a garage then could be suggested to say is 25,000, just the average of those 10.
Interesting.
Yeah, makes sense. And so on that note of what increases property value and what doesn't, like from a renovation standpoint, a lot of our clients are always asking us, okay, should I do this or shouldn't I? Should I renovate the bathroom? Should I do this? What are the best renovations that you see that add value to properties and stuff that doesn't add to their ROI?
So I wouldn't say any specific feature. I mean, kitchens and bathrooms are always a good idea they bring that house to be more modern, right? More appealing to the general market, especially in a market like Calgary where we have so much new construction. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows what they can get from a builder, what you can buy new. So bringing an older house close to modern, you're going to increase that appeal. But general guidelines, what I would say is analyze the neighborhood you're in.
Yeah.
If you're in a neighborhood where they're generally the high end, they're putting in like just a baseline granite or quartz, don't go and spend an extra $5,000 on exotic granite to put it in a neighborhood where no one's really paying for that. So don't over improve. And Another mistake I see is sometimes people will renovate a property that's been renovated recently. And maybe it was renovated 10 years ago. So it's not really modern anymore, but there's also still a lot of value in those improvements. That kitchen's not 40 or 50 or 60 years old. So there's still value there. So you tear that out and put a new kitchen in, you're not going to get as much return on that investment as you think you would. And so maybe targeting older homes, homes in more poor condition, that's where you're going to see more value in your renovations.
Yeah, makes sense. So it's renovating to the market and to the neighborhood. Most of the time the average is, because if you're over renovating, then you're probably not getting that money back because it's too high end for the neighborhood and the market.
Yeah.
And if you're under renovating, then it might be the same thing.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then I was going to ask about the legal suites and legal and illegal suites.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on those? And should people be doing legal suites? Is it worth it compared to illegal?
So what I've seen in the market is that legal suites do add value over an illegal suite. Generally, it's pretty close to the cost, including your labor and time, to going through the permit process and just doing all the upgrades to meet the code to have a legal suite. That's the increase in value you'll generally see. So it's somewhere around the 20 to 30,000 range for a property. And I have seen on the rental side that there is a bit of a premium that is asked on the market for the legal suites, and it seems to be being paid. I think tenants are happy to pay a bit more to know that their basement suite has the right size windows, is built to fire code. You don't have any of those concerns. If a disaster strikes, generally. Legal suites are more modern as well, so it's just a newer property to live in.
Yeah, so worthwhile for the most part.
I think it's worthwhile.
I mean, it changes from city to city, province to province on permitting and timelines to get those done. Like, I think, if I'm right, but I think Edmonton's process is a lot easier than Calgary's to do legal suites. Is that right?
I think they're both pretty easy. I think there's always going to be a learning curve figuring out that process, right?
Yeah.
I think there's definitely value, especially for home flippers or our clients to learn that process. And then like a large part of that cost is just the time, like your time going through that. So the more you learn about that, the more you can reduce that time and improve, your ability to make profit on that type of renovation.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And Calgary just approved blanket zoning. Is that going to impact how you do values at all? You see a positive impact, negative impact on value?
Will it impact how I look at the market? For sure. I mean, we're always looking at zoning of properties when we're doing evaluation. So there'll be a feeling out period, for sure, because like as an appraiser, we're generally looking at what the market has done. So we need the market to actually figure out how they're going to respond to this. And then we can look at that and we can make some guesses, some educated guesses on what's going to happen. But what's really going to tell us what's going to happen is the market. So I think it's a positive thing. I know there was a bunch of amendments put into the process as they went through the public review. So I think a big one they mentioned was that townhomes are now a discretionary use under the new RCG zoning rather than just a permitted use. So there's a bit more checks and balances to go through there. You still have the same process where you have to advertise in your neighborhood what you're doing, have some opportunity to get some feedback from your neighbors for making a change like that. Unfortunately, I think one of the big reasons for the blanket rezoning was to help to get some of the rezoning changes and development approvals off of City Council's desk to reduce some of that red tape. So moving townhomes back to discretionary is not accomplishing that, but I think it's a bit of a balance.
For sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, see what happens to Calgary.
Yeah. I mean, from what I heard, all the public hearings were pretty negative for the most part, because you would assume that too, because most people that are going to that are probably wanting to voice their opinion that they don't want it.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't hear a lot of for it, but from our standpoint, like we want to make sure that everyone has a place to live. And I think it's pretty important for for just housing in general and having more housing in Calgary, affordable housing for people to live.
Yeah,
Sure.
it should definitely help with supply. The affordable part is probably a little farther down the road, but I think helping with supply, like turning like a $400,000 detached house lot into four, 300,000 to 400,000 townhomes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've added 4 more units from one, but you haven't improved affordability at all there.
Yeah.
But it should provide more option on that lower price point.
Yeah.
And say someone's looking to buy a unique property. Are there any challenges with valuing it? Do you recommend not purchasing or renovating a unique property? And
What's
maybe some of the risks.
What's a unique property?
Something that doesn't conform to the norm. Maybe what have you seen that's a unique property that a client submitted to you that's like, oh my God, where do I even start on this?
I mean, usually it's just either larger or smaller than the typical property in that neighborhood for the most part. Like you don't see a ton of unique stuff. If it's unique, it's usually more rural.
Yeah.
But just like larger or smaller than typical stuff, because that would make it really hard to value.
Yeah, so I think unique, like you said, it makes it harder to value. And the reason it's harder is just because there's less data to understand how that property is valued. So what that means to someone that's purchasing that to renovate it and hopefully make a profit off that is there's just more risk. There's a lot of unknowns. So try to stay away from unique properties if you can.
Yeah. What about, I want to quickly go back to negative influences, because when you said that, I realized that I've seen a lot of people buying properties because they're cheap, but they're right next to either a gas station or a auto body shop or something like that, where there could be environmental issues. Like, what's the impact on that? And like, is there like a certain distance that they should be to make sure that there isn't a negative influence from that?
From those two specific ones you mentioned, like an auto body or gas station?
Yeah.
I don't know if I could say a specific distance.
Yeah.
Generally, we look at if they're directly backing those, that's an obvious negative influence.
Yeah.
If that influence becomes larger, like say if it's a commercial like car block for semis, like that type of gas station, maybe it extends a little farther. You don't see that too often though. I mean, cities generally don't put those right near residential properties, but it can happen. I would say with properties that have negative influences like that, they're generally more risky, but there is always an opportunity to make a profit as long as you're purchasing at the right price point up front, and being aware of that negative influence and how it's going to affect the value of that property.
Yeah, and environmental concerns too. Like
environmental concerns.
Yeah.
That's a little that's outside of my scope.
Yeah.
I'm not a home inspector or anything like that, but
because even like I know from just previous experience that even a property that's like kitty corner to a gas station could have environmental issues. So it's just, you got to be aware of those negative influences when considering a property to buy.
Yeah.
From the underwriting point of view, at what point do you ask for an environmental?
Well, we probably wouldn't do the deal if it's
for sure, but just more for
like usually if it's a multifamily property or commercial property, we're asking for an environmental. But if the multifamily property is within a residential area, sometimes it's not necessary. But typically, you're going to want an environmental from a takeout standpoint, because the banks are going to ask for it. They're going to want to see that the property's clean. They can lend on it, because if you have some environmental problems and there's contamination to the property, the cost to remediate those can be insane, hundreds of thousands sometimes. So just be mindful of it.
Yeah, wise words. I like it. For the everyday person who doesn't have access to say the MLS or Pillar 9, how credible is just pulling comps on House Sigma, for example? I'm a real estate investor. I'm looking to buy, say, a property in Edmonton. don't have MLS access, reaching out to realtors, and I'm noticing maybe sometimes there's discrepancies between what I think the property will sell for. Do you recommend the everyday person just to use House Sigma to try and pull comps themselves and come to a value that way, or just strictly go through a realtor?
House Sigma can be a good resource in certain markets. I think they have agreements with local MLS boards, but in some areas they don't. So you're not going to get consistent data across the country. I know their data in Calgary is not great. I don't think they're allowed to post sales. They can post listings. In Toronto, they can post both, access to both, for example. But I would say like building your network and your team, like working with a trusted realtor or appraiser, both can really help you get access to that data, do that work for you, and build up your own skill set as you go.
And I think that's the biggest challenge when it comes to real estate investors is finding the comps to substantiate their after repair value. It just seems like
biggest challenge, it seems.
Like getting those together, coming to an after repaired value. You really got to know your stuff, and you got to be working with the right people to give you that valuation at the end, because we're in a really hot market, but if you still need to buy right. You still need to buy the property right and have that margin to be able to make money on those.
Shifting gears a little bit, I'm just curious, what's the process to become an appraiser? Like, what's the time investment and I guess the money investment if people are interested? Is it a quick and easy process, or?
To become a candidate appraiser, it's pretty easy to get into, but it takes a couple of years of work experience and completing the education process to get your designation, to be able to complete your own real estate appraisal reports. I don't remember the cost. It's been
a few years.
It's been a number of years now.
Yeah,
I think it's not. I don't think it wasn't too onerous. I think it's like somewhere in the 5,000 to 10,000 in courses you need to take, right, and the associated time commitment, probably a few weeks to a couple months over those 2 years.
Because you still have your license, right?
Yes,
but
I have my residential appraiser's license, and I'm working towards my commercial right now as well.
Right, but not doing third-party value or appraisals.
Yeah, not internally for Calvert. No.
We always call them values.
Yeah, I still do some fee appraisal on the side,
right?
Not too often.
Gotcha.
Calvert keeps me pretty busy.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's hope so.
We need those values for our clients.
Quick turnaround. Let's go. Anything that we didn't touch on that, from what you see on a day-to-day basis, that you think would add value to, the everyday real estate investor in order to just help reduce that gap of the discrepancies of valuing properties or best practices?
I think it's just keeping up with modern trends. Like from a lot of our successful flippers I see, they're putting in modern flooring, which these days is luxury vinyl plank generally. There's a wide range of quality in that product. So again, picking a good product at an efficient price point that's in line with your market is great. Successful renovators I see, they replace the interior doors, the trim, they paint. They make the house look more modern. You can retain cabinetry, paint it, put on new hardware, put on new counters and backsplash, and it can look like a new kitchen as long as it's quality cabinetry. So I think keeping on top of trends in the area and trying to be on top of what the market is paying for and doing that at the most efficient price point you can.
Now I got one to help you out. I'm gonna tell our audience how to help our evaluators. Because we are doing desktops. We're not going to these properties. So the most important thing for Chris and his team is to have photos of the property and like all the rooms, so we understand the layout, and then the detailed renovation budget and everything that they're doing to the property. Like, how important is that for you and your team to be able to give an accurate value?
It's incredibly important. So like the more detail that can be provided in that renovation plan, the better. Like if we're on the renovation plan, so we have a renovation checklist that asks what you're doing for the section for painting. If you just say yes, we're painting, we kind of have to make an assumption. Are you just painting, the kitchen? Are you just painting the walls? Are you going to paint the ceilings? So if you can say like, you're going to be painting the trim, the baseboards, the interior doors, the walls, the ceilings, anything you're doing, that's incredibly helpful. When you're renovating a bathroom, if you're gutting the whole bathroom, putting in a new shower, vanity, new toilet, like be as detailed as you can. Let us know what you're doing. A little bit harder is to give us like a price point of what you're spending on that renovation for each of those components, and letting us know if you're contracting it out, paying someone to do the labor, right, or if you're doing it yourself and not including that labor cost in your budget, because a lot of market value depends on the cost of materials as well as the cost of labor. So we need to know if you're accounting for that cost in your renovation budget, because it gives us a good idea of what you're putting into that renovation, that total dollar value.
Yeah, because an as is relatively easy for you guys to do because you have the photos. This is what it's going to look like. But when you think about something that's being renovated, like unless you know the specs and different things that they're doing, how are we supposed to know exactly what it's going to look like at the end? And the more accurate we can be, the more help we can give our real estate investors with knowing if we think they're going to be profitable or not.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier, appraisers are conservative by nature. So if we have less detail, we're generally going to fall on the more conservative side, which makes it harder to understand if there's profit on a deal. So if you can share those details, it helps us be more accurate to what your final vision is going to be.
That's really good to know. So you're saying that if there's less detail, our value will probably come in lower.
It's going to reduce our confidence, right? Because we don't know exactly what's going on, what's going into that property. So, like what some of our clients have done, and what we try to ask for sometimes is sample work.
Yeah.
So if you've renovated a property before and you have the photos of what that looks like after, and that's exactly what you're doing on this property, like share those with us. That gives us a great idea. That can be almost better than the budget and detail on what you're doing there. And again, if you're just starting out, so you haven't done a renovation before, if you have a property you've seen on MLS, you say, well, this is what I'm going to do. That helps us as well. Like the property is going to look like this when I'm done renovating it. This type of finish, this type of flooring, this type of cabinetry, that can help us understand what you're doing as well.
Awesome.
And valuing off market, because I know we do a bunch of off market deals. Are there any key things that you need in order to value an off market deal? Obviously, just property photos. Like, is that it? Do you need specs of the house? Or do you, as long as you have property photos, are you able to value an off market property to fund it?
It depends on the market. Like in Calgary, we have easy access to dwelling size, lot size, and all that. So in Ontario, a lot of the markets, if you know the size of the dwelling, like if you've measured it or had it surveyed when you're looking at buying it, that helps us a lot as well. Ontario has impact, which has house sizes, but it's not always updated and accurate. Housing stock in Ontario is much older. A lot of houses from 100, 150 years ago. So over that time, there's been a lot of additions to houses. That's not always reported to the municipality. It doesn't always make its way back to the assessment authority, which was impact. So we may not have an accurate size of that dwelling. So yeah, in Ontario, if you can help with that data, it's super helpful to us. But in general, photos of every room. We like to see photos of the mechanical systems as well, like the furnace, hot water tank, the plumbing and electrical. Because if systems have been updated in there, if they're not 100 years old, that adds value to the property.
Yeah.
But if we don't see it and it's a 100-year-old house, we're probably going to assume that it's still original.
Yep.
So whatever you can let us know about that property to be accurate helps us value more accurately.
Makes sense.
More info means higher value.
Yeah, more detailed the better.
Not always, but sometimes.
Not always. More accurate value.
Yeah, more accurate, which is exactly what we want.
Are there any negative repercussions or liability that can happen if you're doing like a third-party appraisal from an appraiser point of view? I'm more curious just personally, like if you value a property or appraise a property or whatever, another third-party appraiser, and someone appraises it at one value and they have another appraiser come in and they value it 20 grand more, 30 grand more.
Mhm.
Is there any liability or
There
why does
can
that
be.
happen?
Generally, why appraisers have come in at different values.
Yeah.
I know those are two different questions.
Okay, we'll stick with the first one. Any liability from an appraiser point of view?
For sure. And it generally, I mean, there's liability with anything you do, right? Like anybody could come after you, sue you for whatever they want. But generally in the appraisal industry, the issues you see are lawsuits from lenders when people get into issues paying their mortgage. And generally it happens when a property was originally valued in an upmarket and it's now a down market. So the property is probably worth less than it was when the mortgage was first set. So that's when you'll see a problem of liability. And how you protect yourself as an appraiser is supporting your work and just doing everything the right way. So we can make guesses, and like we're paid to make educated guesses on where value sits in that. But generally, you want to support that with market evidence, especially if you're making adjustments. If you're making a qualitative decision on value, that's also okay. But that's it's harder to demonstrate, I guess, to prove what you're doing to the market. So it doesn't look as reliable on an appraisal report. But you can make adjustments and you can make qualitative decisions as well. But the worst appraiser has to worry about is maybe losing a client if they're unhappy with your value. But as long as you're doing things the right way, you shouldn't have to worry about a lawsuit.
Yeah, I mean, every appraiser has different standards for adjustments, I guess, is kind of the way to say it. But like we'll have certain adjustments we make based on square footage, and someone else might have slight differences. So there's always very difficult if you go to two different appraisers, if they're going to come exactly the same, probably be off a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, everyone, like we get similar education, but we all get into this industry working for different supervisors. So we all have different, I guess, ways that we started out doing things. As you get more experience, I think we kind of all gravitate more to the similar way of doing things as you understand the market better and just learn different techniques. But that's why you're going to get differences of opinion on value, just because we all have our biases, even if we try to have no biases. So that comes to how we look at the market. So we're all going to be slightly different. We shouldn't be wildly different though.
Yeah.
Like, if we say objectively a property's value is $1 million, if you have two appraisers come in at like 950 and $1,050,000, that's fine. But if you have an appraiser come in at 1.5 million,
That's big discrepancy.
that's a problem. Yeah. There's probably an issue there. So there's going to be a range of what's acceptable for sure.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Perfect. I'm good on my end. I think we covered quite a bit of ground here.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was valuable for everyone. But any last thoughts on values and things our audience should know?
Well, one thing that, so a tool that I use for making time adjustments. So when you're looking at where the market was and where it is now, it's the Grier HPI index. So there's a public tool that anyone can access that covers major markets in Canada. So it's something you can go and look at. There's some education on there to help you use that tool. But it can give you an idea of if you're looking at comps that are 6 months or 12 months old in larger markets. It's not useful in smaller markets just because public data isn't provided for smaller markets. But it can give you an idea on how to time adjust those properties and look at what the current value of that property is that sold 6 or 12 months ago.
Interesting.
Good to know. So just go on the website. It's free.
Yep.
And you're able to pull HPI and understand what's happening in a specific market by property type.
Yeah, there's some education on there. You might need to go through some of their training videos just to help you understand how to use it. But you can also reach out to a realtor and appraiser to help you understand that tool as well. And then those people would also have access to private data that the MLS boards have that can take you down to individual neighborhoods and larger markets and get a much more accurate value on that or estimation of that time adjustment for properties.
Perfect. Very good to know. Love it. Yeah, I'm good on my end.
Yeah.
Everyone's good. That's the episode. That wraps up another episode of the Real Estate and Wealth Podcast. Be sure to hit that like button, share with fellow real estate enthusiasts, and subscribe to stay in the loop on all upcoming episodes. Get in touch with the team at Calvert Home Mortgage Investment Corporation by calling them at 1-888-752-4642 or email admin@chmic.ca. The opinions expressed in each episode belong to the individuals featured and do not represent the views of Calvert Home Mortgage. While we provide valuable insights, consulting with qualified professionals ensures that your unique financial circumstances are carefully considered, aligning your investments with your long-term objectives. Calvert Home Mortgage Investment Corporation is not a financial advisor, and we cannot advise you on making investments. There are risks to investing in real estate and the potential that you can lose all of your investment.